Welcome back to the ninth hour. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our sponsor Card Academy, where you can find the latest and greatest in Japanese and English Weiss Schwarz cards and supplies. Please be sure to give them a visit. Now, this time around, we're going to be discussing power-up sets. Now, for those of you who only play the English side of the game, you might not have heard about these, but the power-up sets are a fairly recent product that comes with a whole assortment of things. Comes with a supply box, a set of promo cards that are for the set itself, and some sleeves and a deck box. This is so far exclusive to just a few series, Clannad, Log Horizon, and the Idolmaster, but has more or less added a lot more hype to these series. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about the pros and cons about these, from a kind of high-level perspective, and also inside the actual power-up sets themselves for what they're worth. With me, as always, is Melanie.
Hello, guys.
And we're going to be talking about, what we think about these. So let's jump right in as to what the pros for these new Weiss Schwarz power-up sets might be. Now, I think, just as a person who observes things on a business side, I think it's a great idea. It's a great way to, I guess, re-hype series and to sell more products because, that's the name of the game, right? But that's perhaps getting off to way too... Is that too Log Horizon? Is that too meta?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think our villain in glasses is coming out at this point.
Possibly. It just, the scandal has broken out. So that notwithstanding, Melanie, what are your thoughts on this?
So, going along with the business point, I'm just going to kind of compare this to what has originally existed before to help update sites, which is the comeback campaigns, which are great. You can send in the points that you pull from your boxes and get an instant play set in most cases of cards that really help out some older series. Clannad originally was one of the first of those sets to receive a comeback campaign. Lucky Star, of course. And there are a few others like Guilty Crown and then Rewrite, which were the last two most recent ones. They're really great. They really do help the sets and make them more viable. But the problem with those traditionally has always been that, and I don't mean this to sound derogatory because it's great that they go to such great lengths to help us in the U.S., get to fulfill our points. They wouldn't even technically have to do that. They could just make it an in-Japan thing only, and we'd be stuck opening boxes with points with no benefit. But it does take about 3 to 4 months sometimes to process points and to get the cards over here like that. It's really slow turnaround. And with comeback campaigns, sometimes people will, that are in countries that have access to the point stands will just buy a bunch of the comeback campaign promos and then be able to throw them on auction sites and make a lot of money. And then, that money's not actually going to Bushiroad. That's going to, people that are kind of being the savvy entrepreneurs in the secondary market.
Right. Not that we are looking down upon the practice. It's just an observation about what happens.
If you play any TCG or CCG, you know that this is fact. There is a secondary and a tertiary market, and they do what they do. This is not to be derogatory in any way, shape, or form. It's just that sometimes it was hard to get those cards in hand. The power-up set, I feel, is a great way to get those cards into people's hands. Alongside, this is an interesting point with supplies. Because if you think about it, with the supplies and stuff, some of these older sets, like, for example, Log Horizon, it never got really any supplies. There's one set of Comic Cat exclusive Akatsuki sleeves that were, pretty much sold out, and that was that. Clannad had supplies, but they were underprinted due to demand. At the time, there just wasn't demand, so they did a smaller print run, and those supplies go for anywhere from, I've seen the double deck Clannad boxes go open on the auction sites or places for anywhere from $100 to $200.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one of the few Clannad deck boxes. So I think another thing that's kind of a positive, and also maybe from a business perspective a little bit, is that you get this really cool little kit that comes with, for both Log Horizon and Clannad, the first storage box the series has ever seen, the first deck box the series has seen in either a long time in Clannad's case or ever in Log Horizon's case. And then, you get a nice set of high quality grade sleeves. And that adds value just there for anybody picking up a set. I mean, you may just want the supplies. I think it's a little hefty to pay for the supplies, but compared to the fact that those series haven't received support, it gets a little crazy. So, probably the most important part of these sets, of course, are the cards that are in them. I don't know what you think, Michael. I think that they did a decent job. We've only seen 3 examples of this new product so far. And of those 3, one is waiting to launch this upcoming week. But Log Horizon and Clannad have been out for about a month. And I have to say that I think that they accomplished their goal. Both sets got cards that updated them, fixed some small issues, especially, I would say, with the early game of both Log Horizon and Clannad. I don't think the level 3s are, game changing. I think they're a really nice update and option in both sets. For Clannad, it's probably their first real legit finisher outside of the on-play pay 1 deal a damage Kyo. So, the fact that it got a restandard is pretty cool. Is it, what I would consider to be something that's going to be meta-changing? Maybe in Log Horizon's case a little bit because of what exists in the original Extra Booster, but definitely maybe not so much in Clannad. But right. I think it makes the sets more playable and viable, and it gives us some options that we didn't have before.
And this was to play off that. This is something that we were noticing before, is that particularly with Log Horizon, which is the at least the series that I have the most experience with. I can't speak as with as much authority on Clannad personally, but for Log Horizon, I mean, it was pretty clear that Bushiroad wanted the set to have at least some sort of combo to use early game that wasn't out of level 2 or 3, because prior all it had was you could either use a stock soul double salvage combo at level 2, or you can use the board wipe at level 2 as well. And then there's, of course, the almost mandatory level 3 CX combo with Akatsuki. Now, if we've noticed, though, that there has been a trend with a lot of recent series in that they are getting different ways to gain card advantage at level 1. And Melanie and I were talking about this, actually, off the air prior to this. And this kind of reintroduction of effects is, if you haven't seen it yet, Log Horizon basically got the carbon copy of a CX combo out of Puyo Puyo, where at level 1 you play the CX, on attack you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a matching character, you put it into your hand. So it's basically a chance to get a free card. And there's an argument to be made about whether this is something that just shows power creep, but I actually think that it's a matter of power convergence because of the popularity of these kinds of effects being printed. It seems to me that because cards have, especially over the last couple of years, become increasingly more powerful, that it would make sense for Bushiroad to try to print a lot of similar effects in upcoming releases and in future releases, so as to kind of set a different baseline. Because for those of us who have followed since say Kankale and MSCG were very new in the English side of the game, level 1 features a lot of on reverse search combos to gain card advantage. And more recently with Puyo Puyo and Log Horizon, we see some more chance-oriented CX combos that can end up with some, card advantage. Now, I think that it's telling somewhat that we might see these kinds of effects begin to see more print in the future. I can't speak for them, but it seems that there really is a kind of a new, either it's a new standard or it's a new type of format of deck that Bushiroad wants to push. Now, one point that Melanie did mention about this, though, was that a lot of decks are going to start looking the same as a result, right? Level 0, you're going to have a bunch of utility. Level 1, you're going to have everything just spamming, flipping the cards to see if you're going to get them into your hand. Level 2 is anybody's question, anybody's guess. And level 3 is, can you burn better than your opponent? Because, quite frankly, being able to burn out your opponent is one of the, easiest attack-oriented strategies. Maybe not easiest, but most simple to execute. And, and frankly, it does take the least amount of finesse. I'm not going to say it takes the least amount of thinking, but in comparison to other things such as, restanding or other different kinds of combos, like sending cards to the top of the deck in particular, there isn't that much to really think about in terms of nuances and not as many opportunities to make an error with those. But though with that, speaking to the actual quality of the cards themselves, I think I agree that they're not really going to be game breaking, but to the end that they were supposed to make the decks, more viable, absolutely. I think this was a great success. I mean, looking at my Log Horizon box on my desk here, I'm very happy with it. And I would be glad to to buy more of these in the future, because heck, they got me right in the wallet, right? I want a box, I want some sleeves, I want a deck box, and I want cards. It's like perfectly curated material just that I can throw money at and get. So, props to Bushiroad for doing this one.
And I don't know, I'm going to just throw this out here, but I'm not so sure that it's so much that, it could be kind of that Bushiroad's kind of gone this direction just by, they were the ones that kind of printed these new designed on reverse level 1 plus effects with, Kantai and Nisekoi, and then it's kind of, I think, just become, by how people have designed and played decks and how the competitive scene works, I sometimes wonder if it's not so much that Bushiroad pushed it, but it's kind of become a player expectation. I mean, when you kind of scan sets, you're looking, okay, so what's my level 1 plus combo? What is my advantage combo? And how am I ending the game? This is kind of post-Marika 2014 here for a little bit. But these power-up sets did exactly that. They gave the decks, and arguably for the people that have been playing longer, I do sometimes hear players that'll talk about, hey, I wish that they were a little bit more thematic than they are maybe now. But
right, and to those of us who are hoping to get more about the topic of spoilers in the future, we actually are going to be doing that next. So be sure to listen for the next topic that we're going to be on, which is how to read spoilers, because that's something that has been a very, very hotly debated topic that we saw an opportunity, and we've been working on this one for a little while now. So now let's get into the drawbacks to these power-up sets, because one thing that I know that Melanie is going to point out is that these power-up sets are extremely limited in scope, in that they only give 8 unique cards to the series, and in the whole picture of these things, right? It's kind of like just patching up a little hole in a wall when the idea is to save the house. And that's probably taking it to a bit of an extreme, but certainly for sets that we might be seeing this for, that are egregiously behind in terms of competitive viability, that could be how it also presents itself to players. So Melanie, you had some more on this.
So this is just an example from my local area. From my locals, we've had a bunch of instances where people came in and they genuinely liked the Clannad anime. They're like, oh, cool, there's a Clannad set. And I'm not kidding you. This is what people are saying as they're coming in our local store and seeing that we've still got about 3 or 4 of these on the shelf. The downside is that as cool as this product is, it is not enough cards to build and play Clannad. Even if you have the points and send in for the old comeback campaign. Because of how they kind of made it sort of a mono yellow thematic deck, you can build kind of a hodgepodge deck using the comeback campaign and the new stuff, but you're missing a lot of cards that, are from the older set. It really is truly meant to power up the older set. The downside of this is it's not like these cards are readily available. It's not like you can go on to some of the groups, auction sites, and stores out there and find Clannad Volume 1, 2, and 3 extra booster cards. The set was printed at a time when demand for the game was a lot smaller, and so it had a much smaller print run. And even though some of the key cards from Volumes 1 and 2 Extra Booster got reprinted in Volume 3, it's not enough to meet the current demand. And Bushiroad, they've gone to great lengths to purchase a license and to get us, these nice power-up sets with the extra cards and the art and to license supplies for them. But they don't have, or maybe I shouldn't speak this way, but it is another thing entirely to buy the license to reprint a set. And so I know that in the case of a couple of my locals, they bought the power-up set just because they're hoping and they're like scrounging, looking for extra Clannad singles. I've actually been approached about my collection 3 times in the past couple of weeks and telling people I don't have extras. I'm sorry. I have a couple of singles from my own deck and that's it. Also, on top of this, to kind of transition smoothly to another point, is due to the demand for some of these older cards rising, the prices of some of these card singles have escalated. I believe that speaking from a Clannad perspective, most Clannad decks ran the 1K1 Punish Burn Trigger Family's Bond before in their decks just for the trigger. Most people did not run the 2-1 it comboed with, so Bushiroad did a really great design thing. They took a climax that people were running anyway and turned it into a really viable level 1 combo for a mostly yellow deck. But the downside is I'm sitting there and I'm looking at card singles prices, and then that 1-0 Nagisa was spoiled. The next morning, that climax had literally tripled, almost quadrupled in price. And was pretty much instantly sold out because of that. Now, Bushiroad is paying attention to this stuff. They did a really excellent job. They reprinted that climax with an alternate art as a shop promo. So it's not like they're not trying to help get those cards into people's hands. But it did affect the singles market a little bit. And while that's not entirely Bushiroad's purview, per se, it's nice that they are trying to pay attention to it. I think the other Clannad card that kind of stands out right at the moment is because the Shimikaze and the new Brainstorm search for yellow characters. There's a 1-0 1500 vanilla counter that in most sets is like a common and, the couple cents is gone skywards, upwards in price of anywhere from $50 to, I've seen it hit as high as $75.
Holy moly.
And the reason why is it was a promo that was included in a pack of high-grade quality Bushiroad sleeves. So some of their first anime sleeves that they printed for sets like Haruhi and Clannad incorporated a promo. And that promo card came in a pack of card sleeves. But because it's yellow and it can be searched by 2 of the 3 new searchable things in the set. I mean, the set has another 1500 vanilla counter with an actually decent second ability. But because that counter is in blue and not yellow and therefore not searchable by 2 out of the 3 new search targets, that little 1-0 vanilla yellow promo has kind of gone through the roof price-wise. So Bushiroad, again, has kind of responded. There's some tag and trio team tournaments occurring starting, I think it's this week, in Japan, running through, I believe, the end of May. There's a 1-1 Nagisa 1500 counter that's also doubles with an anti-change condition. I don't remember the exact condition, so I'm not going to say it, but it's similar to the pay to sack a character from your field, choose a character that's a level higher than your opponent, and send it to waiting room ability. So they've given the set that utility, and they're trying to respond, but it has affected the singles market. Now, with Log Horizon, it's a little bit more recent set. I think I've seen a couple of the cards go up, and I know that the singles are still pretty hard to find because, again, the demand has gone up. So some of the double Rs from the first set they're a challenge to find every once in a while.
Right.
But it's not quite as bad as the Clannad situation because a little bit more recent set that did see a reprint due to popularity back when it was first released.
And a view that some players can have as a result of this price increase is kind of a perception of the rich getting richer, and that for those of us that already had the cards, in my case, I already had Log Horizon cards, and so I was basically rewarded for having those cards with this power up set, whereas if I had only gotten the power up set and I was trying to catch up, I would be in a kind of a pinch to try to find the right cards because the access would have been pinched off. But let's also put this into perspective that this hasn't happened only in WS. Let's take across the pond and go to Magic, for instance. For the last couple of years, we've had the Modern Masters sets released. Modern Masters released in 2014 and Modern Masters 2015. Both times, for instance, Tarmogoyf was reprinted, and the opinions about this card being reprinted have been, up and down. Oh my God, you're going to blow up the secondary market, or oh my gosh, my cards are going to be so worthless. Ultimately, if nothing else, the price eventually just went up and stayed there, simply because of the rarity of it all. And so as we've seen from other games that as these cards start to come up more, regardless of their current access, there still will be a way to get them, and the old value will be preserved. Now, the difference here is that the power-up set is all unique cards. So my comparison to this and the Modern Masters series in Magic is not quite a perfect fit here, just to kind of temper that argument, because the idea with Modern Masters was to get people more access to cards that had been printed so long ago that the prices of packs were just insane. And to be fair, in WS there's some of that. It's not so much a price point but just a rarity point these days, such that it's really hard to find old packs. You can find them in Magic, it's just that you have to really dig, and a lot of dealers are not as open about selling great volumes of that. Now, and as Melanie said, what Bushiroad has been doing is Bushiroad's answer to that was to make a shop promo to replace or to introduce more of in-demand card.
To fill in that demand. Also, I would also point out that I feel like these power-up sets are in response to the players' viewpoint on the game a little bit. I think that they've looked at for example, we got Guilty Crown and the Rewrite Comeback campaign in August with the Nisekoi and SAO extra boosters. And if you look at the World Grand Prix percentages of entrants, we saw an increase of those decks being played at World Grand Prix, regionals, and nationals and stuff. And also, over the years, it's a common thing that you see that people are like, hey, I want support for this series again. Hey, I'd love to see some new cards for this. Bushiroad is listening. I feel like this power-up pack is somewhat born out of the desires of players and what is within their means to do. They're listening to us. And they're listening to the fact that, hey, we printed some cards. Guess what? Those cards were enough to bring these decks back to competitive play. No, they may not have won all out, but they were competing and doing well, and maybe taking a regional here or two, or making top 4 at some of these events. And people are, they want to play their older sets, and they're responding to that too.
Right, and it could be a point could be made, an argument could be made for the fact that the increase in viability was what caused people to play it more. But we also have to consider, at the end of the day, the whole reason that we like to play, at least according to Bushiroad, is because we want to celebrate our fandom of these series. So, of course it will make sense that by just getting a few extra cards for a set, more people will show up with it. Not necessarily because it's more viable per se, even though we did see that also with Index, for instance. That was a huge power spike for that series. But, it's also that we can't really tell why more players will play it, but I think we can reasonably assume or project make a conjecture that it was as a result of more cards being used, an uptick in power, of course, but also the fact that, hey, I had this old deck before, but I want to I want to play it, I want to show it off, I think it's good, that kind of thing. Now, we'll probably see fewer of the players that just want to play it at the most competitive level, but that doesn't mean that people will necessarily void of that reason. It just means that we're at a we're less likely to see people who want to celebrate the fact that they're playing with the series. We're more likely to see that at the local levels and so on. So now with these, as Melanie was saying, we do vote with our wallets. We do have ways to see, and I'm curious to see if Bushiroad is going to be bringing this over to the English side of the game, because we do have Meister sets.
Yeah.
On the English side, and I think the Meister set was great. It's a great deal because you get packs, you get a great big storage box. I've gotten them just because the storage box is so great, and of course a sweet map.
I have too. I will also point this out too. The packs aren't just random packs. The packs have set ratios. In the standard Meister set, except with the exception of Cinderella Girls, because that set had a different double R pull ratio, so that one's a little bit more random. But in every Meister set, you are guaranteed 2 double Rs and a foil. And that foil can be an SP out of 10 packs. So you're literally getting a half box ratio in your packs, which makes it, I think, a better buy for the player.
Yeah, it represents the better half of a box, really.
Yeah.
And you sacrifice the, the redundancy in that you get a box and a mat. But, for the shot of getting 2 foils and basically a box's worth of cards and getting 2 mats and 2 boxes out of it, I'd rather just get 2 Meisters myself. So with that said, coming up here, we're actually going to be taking a poll from all of our listeners and all of our viewers here to see what kind of power-up sets you might like to see, or just what kind of sets in general. There's going to be a link in the description below that'll lead you to the May 2016 giveaway. And if you're listening to this post May 2016, we'll probably have something else by now. But there's going to be a link to the giveaway in the box below. Please make sure to get your entry in, because we are going to be giving away special Comic Cat merchandise for a few months with this. And we also are going to be sending the data that we gather for the month to Bushiroad. So if you think that a certain series warrants a power-up set in the Japanese side of the game, we'll have a question there for you. If you want a certain set in English, we'll also have that for you there. Let's get the word out. Let's see, if we can make some really popular sets happen, and we need your help. And the best part is we're going to be giving you, the possibility of winning some free sweet stuff from Comic Cat, and also a box and other prizes as usual. So that wraps it up for this time. I want to thank you again, Melanie, for joining me, and the rest of the listeners. Be sure to tune in next time, where we are going to be talking about how to read spoilers. And once again, make sure to sign up below for the 9th CX monthly giveaway, where we're going to be giving away, again, at least a box and some sweet Comic Cat supplies. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.